Be open-minded and curious about others' perspectives. Take the time to listen about cultural differences and be respectful of them. If you're not sure, it's okay to ask someone about their preferences or practices. Welcome to the Voice Room podcast, the #1 destination in Asia for mastering your voice, speaking with impact, and showing up with authority. Hey there, and welcome back to the Voice Room podcast. And I'm your host, Carina Tien. I'm so glad that you're joining me today. Whether you are tuning in from your commute or your office or just taking a moment for yourself, I'm excited to dig into a topic that is so relevant to all of us, especially in our fast-paced, interconnected world. So, what are the barriers of communication and how we can overcome them? Now, communication is the backbone of everything we do, from personal relationships to professional success. But despite how much we talk and share, we often face barriers that prevent us from truly connecting and understanding each other. So, today we are going to explore those barriers, why they happen, and more importantly, how we can overcome them. Let's start with the basics. What exactly do we mean by barriers to communication? Well, in simple terms, communication barriers are obstacles that prevent the message from being effectively delivered, received, and understood. These barriers can happen in any point in communication process, whether when we are speaking, listening, or interpreting. Now, when we think about communication, it is not just about words, right? It's how we say those words, the context, the emotions behind all those words, and even how we receive them. Barriers can distort all of that, leading to misunderstandings, confusion, frustration, and even conflict. But here is the good news. Once we identify these barriers, we can work to break them down and communicate more clearly and effectively. Let's take a look at some of the most common barriers that block effective communication. You've probably experienced at least one of these in your day-to-day life. So let's break them down. Number 1, language barriers. This one is pretty straightforward. When people speak different languages, it is hard to understand each other, right? But even if we share the same language, things like jargon, technical terms, or colloquialism can confuse the message. I'm sure you have been in a meeting where someone uses terms you don't quite get, and suddenly you're lost. So how can we overcome that? Be mindful of the words you use and the audience that you're addressing. Try to keep things simple, especially when talking to people from different fields or backgrounds. And if you don't understand something, ask for clarification. Number 2, cultural differences. Cultural norms, customs, and traditions can create significant barriers to communication. For example, some cultures place high importance on direct communication, while others prefer more indirect or polite forms. A simple phrase, "That's okay," in one culture might be seen as rude or inappropriate in another. So how can we overcome that? The key here is cultural sensitivity. Be open-minded and curious about others' perspectives. Take the time to listen about cultural differences and be respectful of them. If you're not sure, it's okay to ask someone about their preferences or practices. Number 3, emotional barriers. Our emotions play a huge role in how we communicate. If someone is feeling angry, anxious, or upset, it's harder for them to communicate clearly or listen effectively. On the flip side, when we are in a heightened emotional state, we can also become defensive or react impulsively. In order to overcome this, be mindful. Mindfulness is a great tool that you can use here. Before communicating, take a moment to assess your emotions and calm down if needed. If you're having a heated conversation, it might be a good idea to take a break and come back to it when you both feel calmer. Empathy also helps. Try to understand the other person's emotional state and how it might be influencing their words. Number 4, physical barriers. This includes things like poor acoustics, noise, or distance. Ever been on a call where the connection keeps dropping or there's too much background noise? It makes it so much harder to understand the message. So what can you do? You pay more attention to your physical environment. If you're having an important conversation, make sure you are in a quiet, comfortable place. In a work setting, if you're in a meeting, use tools that reduce distractions, like noise cancellation headphones or a good microphone. Number 5, perceptual barriers. This happens when people interpret the message based on their own perceptions, biasness, and assumptions. For instance, if you are already decided someone is difficult to talk to, you might interpret everything they say negatively, even if that wasn't their intention. You overcome this by practicing active listening. Don't jump to conclusions or make assumptions. Focus on what's being said rather than filtering it through your own bias. Ask questions to clarify things you are not sure of. The goal here is to truly understand the other person's perspective before forming a judgment. Number 6, information overload. In today's digital world, we are constantly bombarded with information. Emails, social media, meetings. It can all feel like a flood of messages coming at us. When there's too much information, it is easy to become overwhelmed and miss key details. You overcome this by dealing with the information that is important first. We call it prioritization. Take a step back and ask yourself, what is the most important information here? Break things down into manageable pieces and focus on one thing at a time. In conversations, try to stick to the main points rather than getting lost in the weeds. Now that we have covered the common barriers, let's talk about how we can overcome them. It's not enough just to justify the problem. We need to know how to take action. Listening is at the heart of overcoming many communication barriers. Active listening is the heart of overcoming many communication barriers. Active listening is a skill that can break down a lot of barriers, whether it's language, emotional, or perceptual. When you listen actively, you reduce misunderstandings and create space for clarity. If something is unclear, don't be afraid to ask questions. Phrases like, "Can you explain that a little bit more?" Or, "What do you mean by that?" All these questions help clear up confusion and ensure you're on the same page. What about adjusting your communication style? Be flexible. If one approach isn't working, try adjusting it. If someone is struggling to understand a concept, explain it differently. Maybe use visuals, metaphors, or simpler language to get your point across. Non-verbal communication is also important. Ensure that your body language is open and welcoming. Nodding, maintaining eye contact, and leaning in slightly all convey that you're actively engaged and interested in the conversation. When emotions are running high, it is important to stay calm and patient. If you remain composed, it encourages the other person to do the same, which helps keep the lines of communication open. And finally, empathy. Empathy is the foundation of effective communication. Understanding where the other person is coming from, emotionally, culturally, and contextually, helps you find common ground. It also prevents you from misinterpreting their intentions. Let's take a look at some real-life examples of communication barriers and how we can overcome them. Example 1. Language barriers in a multinational team. Imagine you're working in a team with people from different countries. One of your colleagues speaks English as a second language, and sometimes you don't quite understand them. Instead of getting frustrated, you ask them to clarify. Can you explain that in a different way? And try to simplify your language. This fosters an open, respectful conversation, allowing everyone to contribute. Example 2. Emotional barriers during a conflict. Let's say you are having an argument with a friend, and emotions are running high. Instead of reacting defensively, you take a moment to breathe and acknowledge your feelings. You might say, "I hear that you're upset, and I'm feeling frustrated too. Let's both take a step back and talk this through calmly." This approach diffuses tension and opens the door for more productive conversation. And there you have it, communication barriers and how to overcome them. I hope now you have some concrete strategies to tackle those obstacles in your own life and communication. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to share, subscribe, and leave me a comment. You can also follow us on Instagram at The Voice Room and LinkedIn at Carina Tien for more tips and behind-the-scenes moments. I'm Carina Tien, and I can't wait to see you in the next episode. Until then, keep communicating and breaking down those barriers.